Hey, what's going on, guys? Devin here with Backcountry Exposure. I've got an exciting video to share with you guys today. We're going to talk about how I can guarantee you a restful and just a comfortable night of sleep in the backcountry, primarily focusing on ground sleeping. We're not going to talk about how to stay warm and comfortable with hammock camping on this video because it's not my style, and it is a whole other beast to discuss that doesn't really apply to today's conversation, but we're going to focus on the gear that is necessary to create a quality and good sleep system, depending on the conditions that you would be experiencing and the type of sleeper that you are. So we're not going to talk about campsite selection and staying well hydrated and good nutrition, being well fed, because those aspects of backpacking really do make a difference in how much more comfortable you can be on your trip. We're going to talk about the gear, even though those items should not be forgotten because they are really important. But how do you create a quality and just a good sleep system depending on what conditions you're going to experience? So I've got several items here that are going to help facilitate the conversation. But we're going to start with kind of the ideal setup that I've got here in front of me. And what I have is a lightly insulated sleeping pad and a 32-degree sleeping bag. This is going to be kind of the benchmark for creating a quality 3-season backpacking sleep system. So let me define the benchmark that we've got here a little bit more. This is the Thermarest Hyperion 32-degree down sleeping bag. Underneath, I've got the Big Agnes Q-Core SLX insulated sleeping pad. And the reason that this works so well as a 3-season summer type of backpacking sleep system is I've got a lightweight down sleeping bag that has a comfort rating around 40 degrees. And then I've got an insulated sleeping pad that has a nice loft to it. It's nice and tall, so it's going to be comfortable, but it's also insulated with about an R value or so of 3. This pad happens to not have an R value attached to it. It's rated to 32 degrees, and it's a lightweight, good, comfortable system. I've enjoyed what this is. Just I've laid here on the table for a few minutes before doing this video, and it's really comfortable. It's awesome. But the reason that this type of system works, and I want to focus on the importance of matching your sleeping bag to the sleeping pad and making sure that those two work together to create a system that fits the temperatures that you're going to experience in the backcountry. If I have a 32-degree sleeping bag and then I get a sleeping pad like this Outdoorsman Lab pad that doesn't really have an R value to it at all, it's not insulated in any way. If I take this out with this 32-degree sleeping bag, my ability to stay warm below 40 degrees is pretty much out the door. It's not going to work. And so what we are trying to avoid and correct is heat transfer from your body through the sleeping pad to the ground, and we call that conduction. So the ground is more or less colder than your body, and it's going to be basically sucking that hot body temperature, that air that is going to be coming from your body, and we want something underneath us that is going to reflect that back. And this is why quilts have become more common and more popular lately, because, and Thermarest even achieves this with this bag. Let me explain. So on the back of this bag, yes, I do have down insulation all the way through the back, but this Hyperion sleeping bag has 70% of the loft of the down or the down fill on the top and only 30% of it on the back of the sleeping bag. As my body is laying on this sleeping bag, it is compressing that down, and the down not being able to loft up doesn't allow it to capture and hold on to those heat molecules or whatever and really just trap in that body heat. And so once I have established that I can't insulate my body on that back panel, then I'm reliant on a sleeping pad to reverse that conduction that happens by sleeping on the ground. And if I've got a pad such as this that doesn't have any insulation in it, it's just going to get that fabric cold. It's not going to reflect that body heat back into me, and I'm just going to lose that heat and I'm going to sleep cold. So one way that you can reverse this kind of thing without going too extreme of, now I got to buy like 7 different sleeping pads for all of the various temperature ratings that I'm going to experience. If you want to simplify it a little bit and not carry a bunch of extra weight and just not also spend a bunch of money, I can get something like a closed cell foam pad. It could be this Nemo switchback. It could be the Z-Lite pad from Thermarest. It could be a closed cell foam pad that's like $10 from Walmart that rolls up. There's a lot of options of what you can do, but if I just put this underneath my sleeping pad, usually these closed cell foam pads have an R value of around 1.5 to 2, depending on what it is. But I have now increased the R value, or the temperature rating, for my sleep system. I have put an additional barrier underneath this sleeping pad, and now I'm that much warmer. And something that's important to understand as well is I don't have to put this closed cell foam pad underneath. I can layer it any way that I want. So if I wanted to, I could put this on top of the sleeping pad, and it's going to accomplish and serve the same purpose as if it was underneath. And I think that's important for people to understand, because a lot of people will say, well, it has to be underneath, and that's not necessarily the case. All we're trying to do is to reduce and eliminate the ability for that conduction to remove that body heat from us. So moving on to using a sleeping quilt with a sleeping pad. Let's put this back here. Once I've got a sleeping quilt, the difference is I now have an open back panel to go back to this concept of I'm compressing the down on my back. So if I am planning to experience temperatures that are in that freezing temperature range, 32 degrees or 0 degrees Celsius, then if I have a sleeping pad, again, to go back to this, that doesn't have any insulation in it, I've now just subjected myself to even more ability for conduction to not reflect that body heat back through the sleeping pad. So it is even more important with a quilt to ensure that this pad that I am sleeping on matches the temperatures that I'm going to experience of the destination that I'm going to. So this really becomes even more critical to consider, should I buy other options of sleeping pads? For example, I go something very insulated like the Nemo Tensor Alpine, or there are so many different types of insulated pads, but another option would be this Xped Sinmat HL Winter. This has an R value of like 5, or you can go the route of like a Thermarest Xtherm that now has an R value for their 2020 version of 7. So a very high R value that is really not going to add that much weight or bulk to your sleep system, but it makes a big difference in the ability to keep yourself nice and warm. But how do you sleep warmer with a quilt? Because now you've exposed yourself to additional draft points that if you're not paying attention, when you roll over from side to side, you're going to release all of that warm air that's trapped inside of your back. And so what companies are doing is they are providing and sending with quilts a pad strap. So this pad strap is going to go around your sleeping pad, and then on your quilt, you have these various types of toggle points depending on what brand it is, and that's going to clip right into the pad strap. And what this does is you've got multiple options of where you can place this, and you can do 1 pad strap, you can do 2 pad straps, but now your quilt is attached to your sleeping pad. And this allows for when you roll over, that quilt to not get pulled over or opened up so that you expose those draft points. So you're eliminating draft points, and now you're keeping yourself attached to the sleeping pad as well. And it's a really, really cool system. Just very, very smart to have this anytime that you're using a quilt, because it's just going to make for a better and more comfortable sleeping experience. I feel like a magician or something over here, but now I've got another option of a sleeping bag just to prove the point of how manufacturers are focused on making sure that you're basically creating this mindset of having a good sleep system that works together, that it's the two items functioning to create that quality, good, restful sleep. Now, this is the Sierra Designs Cloud 800 20-degree sleeping bag, but I want you to look at this back panel. So what I've got here is a sleeve that they have sewn onto the bag, but because of this bag, you're again compressing the down on the back through the entire back panel. You see there's no baffling through this. This is eliminated, and they are saying you need to make sure that the pad that you are sleeping on is going to keep you nice and insulated. So what they have done is, with this sleeve here on the back, I now can slide my sleeping pad into that sleeve. And by doing that, I am making it so that this back panel is staying right on the pad itself. And as I roll around and move, the bag doesn't have the ability to shift and then this entire draft point to then become exposed, because I've slept on like a 25-inch pad, for example, and the pad sleeve for this bag is meant to be for a 20-inch pad, like the one that I've got here on the table. And I can't get the pad into the sleeve. And so on those nights that I've had colder temperatures, it's been a lot more difficult to keep myself warm, because I'll roll over and now this entire back panel is exposed and I don't have any insulation that's protecting me. So another really important reason to make sure that your sleeping pad and your sleeping bag are matched for the conditions that you're going to experience. But if you have additional questions, please feel free to ask me. I would love to answer. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, guys, please go ahead and do so and hit the bell notification to get notified when I post new videos. I hope you have an awesome day. Really appreciate you watching. We'll catch you on the next video. See you later.